Hello? Yep, I think I can hear myself. Good. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Can I just check that you can all hear me okay? Some thumbs ups. Good. Okay, we're just waiting for a few more people to get settled. Just a little bit of housekeeping. You've got a head volume switch at the bottom of your headphones, so if you do need to turn it down at any point, that's how you can do that. Okay, so look, I think we'll get started. My name is Sunny. I work with the Global Government Forum, and I also work as an independent as well. If you're looking for me on LinkedIn after this because you want to have a go, it's very easy to find me. LinkedIn, and it's Sanjay Sharma, which is my original name. Okay, let's see if it's all working now. Okay, so look, the goal today is when you get back tonight, there is something that I've shared with you that you want to try out. Okay, this is a masterclass, which is quite a big word really to define this session. But look, basically the idea is that you leave today understanding the phrase or the term generative AI. Okay, so it's not a technical session, but it's more of a just to get you onto the same page as anyone else talking about this kind of technology. So what I want to do is I want to start off with what I call a leveler. Okay, so this is a short film, a very short film, inspired by Wes Anderson. So who's seen My Life Aquatic? There we go. Who's seen Budapest Hotel? Okay, so look, for me, this is a leveler. This has been built using Google VO2, which is a publicly available generative AI application. So here we go. I'm going to play it. Okay, now look, the purpose of this video is really just to set a benchmark, okay? This is where we are today with artificial intelligence, okay? This has been wholly generated through generative AI. So you put in a prompt and you get a short clip in terms of video, and then you keep doing that until eventually you can start to form stories. And I think it's really important that when we think about AI, that we don't just think about ChatGPT. Actually, what we're thinking about is all the other visual content that's being produced that we're accessing on our social media networks and that we're seeing on television. So look, I just want to do a bit of a backstory. I think it's always important when you do these kind of events to do a bit of a backstory. So I was a teenager in the 80s. I'm sure you can't tell. And my parents got me this. This is a Commodore 64. It's a off-beige hunk of plastic. When I first got it, I thought it was a really crap typewriter. But actually, I went on to use this to go into computing. And when I went to Manchester in the early 90s to do my degree, I did a degree in computer science. Now, as part of that degree, I did what was probably the most boring module of all time, machine learning. Okay? Now, my background's computer science, but I've spent 15 years as a teacher, a senior leader inside schools, as well as running various training businesses around IT. Now, why is the Commodore 64 important in this narrative? So, if we take the Commodore 64 and we position it on an AI timeline, that's where the Commodore 64 sits. ChatGPT and all of the power that we feel from something like ChatGPT is actually the same as where the Commodore 64 was in the 80s. And if we look at the next 10 years, what we're going to see is an unparalleled development and progress around a technology like artificial intelligence. So already, you can go into Microsoft Copilot and you can build an agent. So if you go to Microsoft Copilot, on the right-hand side, you'll see that there are agents that you can build, but also agents that you can use as part of Microsoft 365. We've already got aspects of hyper-personalization where actually the AI is beginning to understand who you are, what your habits are, and actually how to build preferences around you in terms of how it responds. Go forward 2 years, socially intelligent AI. This is where we're going to see artificial intelligence have empathy. And actually, this is where we're going to see it enter markets like healthcare, but also, being a better companion. If we go forward a few more years, we're looking at autonomous decision-making at scale. I own a Tesla, which isn't as cool anymore, actually, after the last couple of months. But I own a Tesla, and actually my vehicle will autonomously drive me from point A to point B. And it can only do that through an incredible amount of processing and relying on aspects to do with artificial intelligence. And then look, as we move into the next decade, so 2030 onwards, we're going to see artificial general intelligence, AGI, and also human augmented AI co-pilots. This is really where the fusion between how humans operate and what artificial intelligence can do starts to blur, okay? So I think it's really important that we do understand just where we are in the timeline. For most of us, this is the starting point. The Commodore 64, ChatGPT, it really is just scratching the surface. So look, the world is changing very quickly. And actually a lot of that's been driven, particularly in the digital world, by AI. And it is going to change everything, whether we like it or not. But it's important to remember that we've only just properly switched it on, okay? This is a really popular session. I'm delighted you've all turned up to watch this session today. But actually, this is us scratching the surface in terms of artificial intelligence. And look, it's not new. Yep, AI has been around for quite a long time now. And you've been using it for some time already. So from the moment you wake up and you look at your iPhone, it's using AI to detect that you're the person trying to unlock the iPhone. You then go into your social media apps, and actually the algorithms are sending you specific bits of content. And then you move into, so you go to work, you put on Google Maps, and Google Maps uses a ton of AI behind the scenes to try and make sure that you get to your destination on time. And then at the end of the day, when you finally sit down and watch a couple of shows on Netflix, what you're seeing is something that's been personalized and tailored specifically for you. So we already use AI a lot as part of our day-to-day lives, and that's not going to change going forwards. Now, in the early 90s, there was a film called Field of Dreams. Who's seen Field of Dreams? Kevin Costner. Lovely film. But look, in the film, there is this little whispering in the background that he hears, which is, if you build it, they will come. And actually, with AI, that's what's been happening, okay? So this is an AI hub that I share in education, so, with teachers and head teachers and so on. And there are 25 plus applications on this hub. Okay, it's just a page with lots of links. There's a QR code if you want to scan it as well. Now, when I talk to teachers and head teachers about artificial intelligence, none of these apps existed 2 years ago. Okay, the conversation around technology in schools did not include a single one of these applications. So we can already see the rate at which technology is changing, and the way in which actually it can start to empower people to save time, but also to really start to amplify their intelligence. And look, for a lot of people, it kind of feels like this is the cognitive age. Artificial intelligence is going to amplify the way in which we do things, critical thinking, the way in which we create, for example. But basically, we're entering a new space, which is very much about AI scaffolding our brains so that we can think and work in completely different ways. Now, look, it's not, AI isn't without its bad press and good press, okay? And these are headlines from probably the last 5 weeks or so. And we've got everything from AI chatbots distorting and misleading information about current affairs, all the way through to AI being used in the NHS to, kind of supercharge public services, and then all the way through to AI actually supporting people with brain scan readings twice as accurately than conventional methods. So what we're seeing here is, a lot of coverage when it comes to AI. Now, one article that did catch my mind this weekend was this one. So this is Reid Hoffman. So he's a co-founder of LinkedIn. And actually, there's a lot of what he says here which is going to resonate with what I'm going to be sharing with you today, which is you need to start using AI deeply. There's a much bigger conversation to be had about AI on a governmental level, but actually from an individual level, or working in teams, it can be a huge intelligence amplifier. And this is really what I'm going to try and show you today. So look, sometimes I would say it feels like the cloud on the left-hand side. I'm definitely the guy in the yellow t-shirt, the super productive AI guy. But I also have a 5-year-old daughter, and I do wonder what's going to happen as she enters the world of work, what's going to happen to critical thinking skills. And actually, I think AI is one of those things that's incredibly polarizing. So it's really important that we try and work out where we are, but don't just push it to one side because it is here to stay. And look, it was never going to be straightforward, okay? Because when we think around our psyche, actually, we're all wired to really not trust AI. Yep. Think of all of the films you've watched, the kind of sci-fi films you watch where there's an AI character. And ultimately, it's about AI gone rogue. Terminator, The Matrix, Westworld. This is where AI actually isn't really seen as being a companion, but actually more of a competition. But what I would say, though, is actually we've reached this point. Right now, all of us, everyone in this room, has the exact same access to AI tools that my 16-year-old son does, okay? We've never been in this position before where we all have such a huge and instant access to intelligence. So for me, the way I look at AI is really this is intelligence as a service. You know, in the same way you might get cloud as a service and other applications, actually, it's like having Einstein in your pocket. So as I'm going through this today, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to just think, if you could get back 1 hour a day, what would you spend it on? You know, just think how many of you work through your lunch break? How many people stay at work an hour later? How many people start work an hour later? Actually, can you get an hour back? And for me, the best way to measure the impact of AI is off the back of time. So time-saving activities that you wouldn't be able to do without AI. So, generative AI. Okay, so what is generative AI? Now, without getting too technical, they are systems that create new content from patterns in the training data. Okay, and that's what generative AI is. It's been trained on huge amounts of data, and it's able to form new content off the back of that data. Now, sometimes people will confuse generative AI with LLMs, or large language models. And actually, LLMs are specifically focused on text, okay? And they're not exclusive in the generative AI space. And if you're wondering what are LLMs, basically, you can assume that LLMs are models that have been trained on absolutely huge amounts of data, like huge. And you've just looked at some of the examples there, you can assume it's been trained on the entire internet. Just make that assumption, okay? Every book, every newspaper, every magazine that's been published. And that's what an LLM is. So ChatGPT, for example, again, can be incredibly controversial, but actually it's been trained on huge amounts of data. And look, you know, we're all probably quite familiar with this kind of scenario now. So if you look at the screens, this is a really typical prompt. So I'm going to be using this all the way through this demo today. So what we've got here is raw input. So write a 200-word ministerial briefing on electric bus adoption in Wales. Summarize it in bullet points, et cetera, et cetera. And what we get is, from raw input, we get a structured response. That response can be long form, it can be short form, and also, you'll see in a moment, it's giving me tweets, but it's also giving me something that's more public facing. So what I've gone from is a simple prompt to actually getting 4 different types of content that I can use with different people. Now, this is the stuff that's been kicking around for the last couple of years, right, since the launch of ChatGPT. And this is where it sits, okay? So when we look at artificial intelligence, ChatGPT sits in that little bit right in the middle, right at the bottom, okay? It is a large language model. It is a subset of generative AI, which is a subset of deep learning, machine learning, and then what we call artificial intelligence. And this is what I mean by the whole kind of scratching the surface piece. For most of us, we're at the ChatGPT level. And actually, generative AI is much bigger than that. So, just going back to the original question, what is generative AI? Well, actually, as well as text, it can also create images, audio, video, and code. Okay, and I've got some examples here. So I'm just going to talk through these examples as they're working on the screen. So this is an application called Skybox AI. Okay, now Skybox AI will take a text prompt and convert it to a 3D immersive world. Okay, And as I'm scrolling through the different places, I'm going to choose one of these. Here we go. Now, what you'll see here is that there's a prompt. This is an Iceland summer landscape, quiet morning, foggy mood. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add into this that I want some cows and a small wooden house. So I add that to the prompt, give it a few moments, and what we get coming back to us is the same 3D world, but now we've added objects to it. Okay? Now, this has been slightly sped up, but the whole process takes less than about 25 seconds. Okay, so what you're now seeing is a text prompt to an immersive three-dimensional world. Now, for anyone who's worked in this space before, generating and being able to manipulate 3D environments requires a lot of skill. You've got to be using Unity, applications like that. You need to understand the way 3D models work. Actually, what this does, it puts it in the hands of everyone. Okay? So let's look at another one. Now, you're going to have to prepare yourself for this one because by the end of this, you're going to be crying, I reckon. So let's see what it goes. Okay, so this is an application called Suno AI. And basically, it creates music from a prompt. Okay? So what I've done here is, here we go. So this is the application. The prompt is, I've literally taken it from the website. So it's a song about a conference that brings together government leaders from across the globe, et cetera, but I want it in the style of country music. Okay, why not? It's fairly popular these days. So look, I hit create, and now you'll see it's generating 2 songs. The songs are called Leaders Around the Table. So if we give it a few seconds, and just so you can share the pain, I'm going to play a large part of the song, just so you can see it. There you go, there's the lyrics. From the mountains to the oceans wide, they gather around with hope and pride. Here we go. Here's the song. So it's going to last about a minute.
From the mountains to the oceans wide, they gather round with hope and pride. A world in need, their hearts engage. Leaders writing a brand new page.
Wait till we get to the chorus.
Forces rise and plans take flight, casting visions for a world so bright. Public hands to serve and mend, building bridges that never end. Leaders round the table, hand in hand, dreaming of a better, stronger land. With every word a seed they sow, for tomorrow's fields to bloom and grow.
I'm going to put you out of your misery, actually. I could play the entire 3.5-minute song that it generated. Now, look, that was slightly sped up, but from prompt to song takes about 30 seconds, okay? It's written the words, it's written the music, it's created the right voice, it's adapted to the correct genre. The images that are overlaid were from ChatGPT. Yeah, all I did was take each line from the chorus, put it into ChatGPT, and it generated an image, and then that's what I pasted on top. The paid version of Suno creates a video to that song automatically, okay? Now, look, this kind of stuff is where I just think will I get to a point where actually generative AI, going beyond text, can do some remarkable things. And if we can all make music like this, actually, what happens to those kinds of industries and stuff moving forward? So I'm going to show you one more example. So this is a website called Deco here. Okay, this is actually quite a big generative AI platform. So what I'm going to show you here is, I'm just going to start typing in a few prompts. This is a real-time image generator. So here we go. I'd like a picture of a man. The man is on a beach. Here we go. And you'll notice it's actually generating 100 images every single time I change a prompt. The man, let's have a look. He's on a horse. There we go. And then if we continue to adapt it slightly, we're going to go for it is sunset. And then finally, just to really get the right level of adaptation that we need, here we go. The man is Donald Trump. And if you look at it, it's adapted it. It's pretty obvious who's on that horse, right? This is real-time image generation. Some of you might have used DALL-E or Midjourney, but actually what Deco here does, it just says, keep adapting the image, add in tiny bits of detail as you're working your way through it. So again, those are 3 examples of generative AI. They are text to music and songs, text to 3D models, and then text to real-time images. And you can already start to see that we're in a very different space to where we were maybe even just 12 months ago. So when we're talking about generative AI, it's much more than just ChatGPT. It's like way beyond ChatGPT. And actually, ChatGPT is a thing that we might use on a day-to-day basis as part of our work. Claude, ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot. But actually, generative AI, you'd be missing a trick if you didn't see that other side of it. Okay, so I want to give you 5 ways to improve your generative AI journey. And this is really about, look, we talk about a masterclass, but you're all from different backgrounds. Everyone's got different skills. Everyone's coming at this from a different level. So what I'm going to do is just show you the power of generative AI when it comes to text. So the first one is this, okay? If you go back to the mid-90s, Google wasn't the only search engine. We had Google, Hotbot, Lycos, AltaVista, Ask Jeeves, Yahoo. There was absolutely tons of them. Okay, it just so happens now we just Google it. Okay. Now with AI, it is not going to be the same. There will not be one emerging LLM that we all use. That just isn't going to happen because there's too many players in the game now. So what I want to do is I want to introduce you to something called Poe. So Poe.com. It's the 3rd biggest generative AI platform globally. Now, what Poe lets you do, and I'll get it going, is a bit like ChatGPT. You can choose your model. So I've chosen ChatGPT 4.0. You can put in your prompt. So I'm going to stick with the electric buses in Wales. And then it's going to run my prompt. Okay, now because I'm using ChatGPT 4, which lots of you are used to, what you're going to see here is a typical kind of response from an LLM. And actually, it's not a bad response. Okay, so I'm just going to scroll through. Now, the differentiator for Poe is that Poe lets you experiment with lots of LLMs. Okay, and what it does is it gets you past just ChatGPT. So if you look at it now, we've got Llama by Meta, Claude by Anthropic, which is co-owned by Amazon, we've got Gemini by Google. So if I now click on Claude Haiku, it's now running the same prompt, but in Claude Haiku. And the differences are subtle. We'll have a look at those in a few moments. I'm just going to run it one more time. So we get to the bottom of that, and we're going to run it just one more time, and this time we're going to use, let's have a look, which one is it? Llama. Okay, so Poe is a really good starting point for this, because actually what you could do is you could have 3 different tabs open with 3 different LLMs, but actually you want to try and work out which one works best for you in terms of your content. So look, if we look at them, there are some subtle differences, okay? Presentation, statistics, the formatting, and the purpose. The first one is ChatGPT 4.0, so the one on the left. And you can see it's added emojis. ChatGPT does that quite a bit. But it's added emojis because it's thinking about the readability part. If you look at the one in the middle, it's clearly using more statistics, okay? Now, there is this issue with LLMs where they will hallucinate, where they will just, to try and appease you, they'll make stuff up, okay? But if you look at the one in the middle, you're getting some statistics, and actually that's quite useful because you can cross-reference those, and it adds a little bit more credibility to your work. And if you look at the last one has written it as an email. Okay, I didn't ask it to write it as an email, but that's what it's done. So you can already see that there are subtle differences, and if you don't challenge different LLMs, you won't see that, okay? And it's the first thing around just how you can get better at using these models. And look, it's important to experiment with different LLMs. Each has unique strengths and limitations. They have biases and capabilities, and it's important that early on you work out which one you're going to use. Please, please don't just use ChatGPT as the only application that you try out. Okay, number 2, build better prompts. Now, this is the most important one, okay? What I'm going to do is give you a bit of a masterclass in this. Now, just before I do that, I just want you to imagine that you hire someone for a new role, but on day 1, you give them no job description, you give them no office or desk, no laptop, no tools, no logins, and you just kind of pat them on the back and say, do your best, okay? And what you're going to get, generally, is confusion, inefficiency, and wasted time. Now, if we think about prompting as the same as onboarding, actually, it's really important when you're prompting to provide clear guidance around the role you want the AI to assume, the persona you want it to assume. Make sure you've got the right tools, make sure you're giving it a structured task, and be really clear about the goals, okay? And look, there is a whole new industry that's kind of sparked up out of this called prompt engineering. If you go to a platform called Fiverr and you type in prompt engineer, you're going to find hundreds of people who think that this is their job, okay? But in the next few slides, you could go off and do exactly the same thing, all right? So we're going to talk a little bit about prompt engineering. Now, what is prompt engineering? Well, look, in the words of Missy Elliott, you just got to work that prompt. You know, that's what it is. You just got to work it, okay? Don't just put in, I'd like a 200-word ministerial briefing. You've got to really get the AI to think through how you want it to respond, okay? Prompt engineering significantly influences the performance of AI models. And this is what I want to show you. So I want to show you something called a RISM framework, okay? Now, the RISM framework stands for role, instructions, steps, end goal, and narrowing, okay? So if I show you what this looks like, here is a prompt. Now, what you can see in this prompt, and it's actually slightly out of kilter now for some reason, but you're telling the AI who it is, okay? Then you're giving it the instructions, then you're giving it the steps, the end goal, and the narrowing are probably the most important ones, because when you go to someone like ChatGPT and you put in a prompt, it wants to give you everything, and it's really important that you get it to fine-tune its response. And I've got some good news for you. And the good news is that ChatGPT is better than you at creating prompts, okay? None of you should have to create prompts, okay? Because I can tell you now, the last one, I didn't write that. I haven't got the patience to do that kind of stuff. So now look, if you're gonna take one photo today of one slide, this is the one. I'm gonna leave it up for a few seconds, okay? And then I'm gonna explain it. So what we have here is, we have the most impactful prompt that you could possibly use. So what we're telling ChatGPT to do, we're saying, hey, ChatGPT, you are a very experienced ChatGPT prompt generator. You use the RISM framework and you say what it is, and each time you use it, you improve the prompt, okay? So you put this into ChatGPT, and let's see what that looks like. So here we go. This is the prompt that I used a bit earlier on, and then that's the response I got. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to paste in my ChatGPT prompt generator prompt. Then I'm going to paste in the bit of text at the bottom, and what I've done is I've taken out the reference to the electric bus stuff. Because actually what I want is I want this particular prompt to do anything. So the next time I'm thinking about the impact of AI on climate change, this prompt is going to do exactly the same thing. So let's see it working. Here we go. Right, so. Yes, it's kicked in. Here we go. So I'm telling ChatGPT that it's an experienced prompt generator, and it says, hey, I understand. Just say the word. See how keen it is? Nobody you work with is this keen. So then I paste in the bottom prompt, and now what you're going to see is I could have just used that prompt. But instead, it's telling me that what I should do is use this prompt. So if you read it now, it says, you are an experienced policy communications officer who writes concise, clear, and audience-tailored briefings for government ministers. Instructions, summarize the key points in the bullets, reformat the content into a professional, engaging tweet thread. So you can see what it's doing, right? I'm creating an assistant for me, okay? And that assistant is now more capable by using that single prompt. Now, once it's done that and it's ready, okay, you copy all of the text that's in there, and we're going to paste it into a new chat. So let's Let that finish off. There you go, just copy it. And that's it. So Control C. And then this is the next one. Okay, so now what we're going to do is get a new chat. And we're going to paste in the thing that I just copied. But look at the top. I'm going to write in there, electric buses in Wales. Control V, paste in that prompt, and then I'll leave it. Okay, and what you're going to see is I'm going to get a much better response. Okay, so let's let that run. And here we go. What you'll also see now is that I'm still using ChatGPT 4, but it's bringing in statistics. Yep, it's working much harder. And that's the difference between a good prompt and a risen prompt. Okay, and what you'll see here now is that actually I've got something that I can literally pick up, spend a little bit of time in and make sure it's not hallucinating too much, and then take that and place it into wherever I was going to use it. Okay, so number 2 is around building better prompts. I'll just leave that running for a few more seconds so you can see it. But look, you know what, isn't it satisfying when all of this stuff is happening for you? You know, I don't know about you, but I always pretend that I did it all. No, I don't. I don't. Here we go. Okay, so there we go. Okay, now the next time I'm going to write about something and I want it to be a ministerial briefing of 200 words, all I do in there is type in, here's the topic, and it will just do exactly the same thing again. You start to build that consistency, and over time, you get that prompt to be better. You tweak it slightly so that it's much better for you moving forwards. So, the Risen framework, role, instructions, steps, and goal narrowing. Use that. It's the best prompt you're going to use. I promise you it will supercharge every single thing that you do, but also start to make sense out of how ChatGPT and Claude and applications like that work. Number 3, advancement in the realm. Okay? When I first started using ChatGPT, I was blown away by all the fancy words it was using for me. And it's really important that you train your model to speak less like AI. Okay? So I've got hundreds of these, right? These are common AI phrases. ChatGPT, if you give it half a chance, is going to chuck one of these in. Okay, my favorite one is enhancement further enhances. I mean, you know, that's mind-blowing. What you've got to do is you've got to get these get these phrases, go to ChatGPT or Claude or Copilot, and in the settings, tell it to not use those phrases or overuse those phrases. And then you'll see immediately you get a very different kind of response, okay? Because it starts to humanize it a bit more. I think there's a QR code at the end, actually. But if you find me, I can send you there's a massive crib sheet. It's got about 400 different phrases. You can just grab that, feed it in, and immediately you're going to get a better response. Okay, number 4. Use AI instead of a Google search. Now, this is one of those things where you think about habit changing, okay? We all went from going to the library to using the internet, and then using the internet to doing Google searches. And now we predominantly do Google searches to find information. One of the best things you can do is don't do a Google search next time, is to use something like Perplexity. So I don't know if people have come across Perplexity AI. And look, all of these things, by the way, that I'm showing you, there is a super free version, and then there's always a bit of a bumper version. Always use the free versions first and see how you get on. So this is Perplexity, okay? And now if you imagine walking to work in the morning and saying, I need to do some research on the impact of electric buses in Wales. Okay, we're going to stick with that theme. You're talking to the person over a coffee, and then you're going to say, okay, I'm off. I'm going to go off. I'm going to start my research, and I'll see you at lunchtime. Now, what you do is that you head over to Perplexity, and you type in, write a ministerial briefing on electric bus adoption in Wales. Now, this isn't even a good prompt, by the way. This is a pretty poor prompt, okay? Now, what you're going to see is it starts whirring, okay? Now, in a few moments, unlike ChatGPT, you can see what it's doing, yeah? So you get a really clear idea that it's found several articles. It's actually found 28 articles, okay? And also, so that you know it's not hallucinating, it gives you all those sources. So if you want to, you can take one of those sources out, okay? Because it might have gone off to a blog post that hasn't really got a lot of credibility. Now, I'm going to leave this running in the background, and what you're going to see in a few moments, once all of that research has been done, it's going to start writing the article, okay? And in the article, you've got these little gray numbers. and that shows you where the information is coming from, okay? Now, when we were talking about saving 1 hour, a lot of people around here today involved in research and those kinds of activities, you spend disproportionate amounts of time doing research. And the one place where AI can transform that, so long as you're watching out for hallucinations and that kind of stuff, is going to be around research. I don't know if you saw it, but I clicked on the PDF link, and I've now got a PDF, and it's got all the sources at the end as well. Okay? So you can already see how using websites like Perplexity, which actually works better than ChatGPT, can really start to supercharge the way in which you search the internet. Okay, and then the last one. So if you recall, I started off with 5 ways in which you can improve your generative AI journey. Now, the last one for me is the coolest one, okay? It's the one for me that you probably don't know about. And actually, Google slipped this in. They literally just launched this last November, and really nobody really knew about it. So what I'm going to do is just show you how it works. So this is Notebook LM. On the left-hand side, on my left-hand side, I've got my sources. And just to show you very quickly, this is what your notebooks look like. Okay, so this is notebooklm.google.com. Now on the left-hand side, I've got my sources. And you can see there, I've got PDFs, videos, all about AI against climate change. I've got website links. And all I've done is I've added my sources, okay, of which there are 8. It's really easy to do. You click on Add Sources, drag in PDFs, upload Google files, put in website links, put in YouTube video links, and also you can paste in text. So when we talk about hallucinating, so long as you've spent the time making sure that your sources are good, this is going to be good. Now, if you look in the middle panel, I've got a chat space. And this is essentially ChatGPT, but only about AI against climate change and only on the sources that I've put in. So if I write in here, what are the biggest misconceptions about AI in the climate? You can see already it's giving me a response. Okay. What it's also got in it is that it's got mind maps built into it as well. So let's give it a few seconds to go up. So, and actually, yeah, as you hover over, you see the sources. If I click on where it says mind map, and this, by the way, is all in real time. I haven't sped anything up on some of this. You click on mind map, and now, based on my sources, I've got a mind map. Okay, and I can use that mind map to drill through the content, but also any green box I click on becomes a note. And then it does a search against that in there. Now look, this is the last bit, okay? This is the audio studio. So based on all my sources, it's created a podcast. And the podcast sounds like this.
Okay, so imagine AI, like predicting floods before they even happen.
Right.
Like fine-tuning our energy grid so we can use like maximum renewable power.
Yeah.
Even like sniffing out methane leaks.
Oh, wow.
Sounds like a total climate superhero, right?
It does.
But here's the thing. What if that same AI needs so much energy to run that it actually makes climate change worse? Today we're diving deep into this whole AI and climate change puzzle.
Okay.
It's complex.
Yeah.
And honestly, a little mind-bending.
I agree.
You sent us a ton of information for this one. Reports.
Okay, so watch what happens now when you press interactive beta mode.
Okay, so imagine
Okay, again,
AI,
watch what happens when I press
like predicting floods before they even happen, like fine-tuning our energy grid so we can use like maximum. Oh, wait, someone wants to join. Hey, go for it.
So based on the most common consensus, what are the top 3 ways in which AI can tackle the climate crisis?
Oh, that's a fantastic question.
It really gets to the heart of the matter.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Based on what we've been reading, a few key areas really stand out.
First off, AI is incredible at making predictions.
Absolutely. Think about forecasting extreme weather events.
Or even predicting energy demand to optimize renewable use.
Okay, so what we've got here, I mean, hopefully you can see the power of this application. This is Notebook LM, completely free as part of Google's normal Gmail application. Now, initially, it created a podcast. That podcast takes about 2.5, 3 minutes to create. Yeah, so you press load and it creates it. But the new function turns a podcast into a talk show, like a radio talk show. So now I can come into this and ask it any question specific to me, and they just adapt the podcast. Now, Google is coming out with new voices, by the way. So that, I mean, obviously, it's a lot of American voices and stuff. But what you can see there is something that's incredibly powerful that tunes into the way in which we all learn. So my son's doing inspector calls as part of his GCSE text. And he has a special educational need, which means that he kind of struggles a bit sometimes with, reading and stuff like that. So we pumped loads of resources into this, loads of sources, the film, the books, the AQA study guide. And now he has the ability to ask it any question suitable to how he understands that text. I mean, it's mind-blowing stuff. So when you're thinking about how you learn and how you research, Perplexity AI is a great tool, but actually this is the one that I think a lot of us can use to adapt around just how we learn. Okay, so just to finish things off, 5 ways to improve your generative AI journey. The first one is don't just stick with ChatGPT or Claude. Yeah, there are lots of LLMs. There's actually in excess of around about 1,000 LLMs, okay? And if you're just using ChatGPT, you're using 3 or 4. So 4.0, 4.5, 0.1, etc. And for that, Poe is a really good starting point. Build better prompts. The Risen framework is a fantastic way for you to just get, supercharge what you do. What you should have, hopefully, as you go home today is thinking, I could do with a little assistant, like a mini-me version that does this stuff. And I need a mini-me version that does this stuff. So I think it's really important that you go back and you use the Risen prompt to try and build yourself some assistance. Train your model to speak less like AI. Use AI instead of Google search. And Perplexity is just one of the applications that's really good for doing that. And a final one is Notebook LM. Super powered tool that you can just use to help to understand and also disseminate information in different ways. So look, just before I finish off, just want to finish off in one slide. I spent a lot of time talking to people about policy and about ethics as well. And I just want to finish with these 5 kind of core principles when it comes to ethics and AI. And I want to pick up 2. The first one is around bias and fairness. Now, if you look at the image on the left-hand side, if you go to ChatGPT today and you type in, give me a picture of a teacher in their natural working environment, you're going to get a very similar picture to me, okay? Now, I used to be a teacher, and that guy doesn't look like me, okay? You can already see that there are inherent biases built into these models. And if you don't try and if you don't try and adapt around that, you'll get biased content. So it's really important that you do consider that when you're particularly working with applications like ChatGPT. And then the last one I just want to cover off is around privacy and data security. I mean, obviously working in government, as a lot of you do, it's important that you do look at some of the small print on some of these applications. If you're concerned about privacy, Microsoft Copilot is actually built within your enterprise, and it's a really good place to start. But also ChatGPT Enterprise version, that gives you a much greater level of privacy and security. But the most important thing to remember, particularly when you're using LLMs, is that the information you're putting in isn't being used to train the LLM, okay? Because actually, if you could do that, there'd be a lot of misinformation going into it. So whatever you're putting into that, I would always anonymize, but it's not being used to train the main data set. Okay, look, hopefully that's been really useful. I've left you 3 avatars that I've got from AI, and you can see that 2 of them are pretty horrendous. But look, if you're looking for me, that's my QR code. If you're interested in any more training specifically around AI for your organization, please reach out to David Leakey, and we're on the government global forums down there. So look, I hope you find that really useful. Thanks so much for joining my session. Back to you. I think it's over to lunch.